Good morning, everyone. Is the screen visible? Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Recording started. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Because I'm in the full view, I could not see the other tabs. Okay, let us start with the deep learning topic. So let us start with what is deep learning and what are the applications of deep learning. So here, deep learning can be implemented only using a neural network, and by deep, it refers to the number of layers in the network. Actually, it is a multi-layer perceptron, like what we have seen, a single layer perceptron and a backpropagation network. Similar to that, this has multiple hidden layers in between the input and the output layer. So the number of layers refers to the depth or deep in the network. So basically, this is also a kind of a subset of machine learning where we can perform the prediction or classification. And this neural network architecture, which performs a classification that involves multiple hidden layers, can take mainly 4 different types of inputs. That means an image, a video, an audio file, and then a text file. So mainly we can use these 4 inputs only, the data, and whether it is an image or video or sound or text, whatever it is basically converted to a numerical data, and the numerical data from all these inputs will be going to the network as the input. So in the input, actually it can be from a sensor. That means you can take a live capturing from a input video. Say somebody is standing at a security gate or at a surveillance, you want to see whether he is an employee or a stranger or a visitor. So in that case, there will be a camera which is capturing the image of a person, and then the features of a person can be extracted and it can be classified into one of these categories. Okay, so that is again a sensor which is capturing the image or a video, and it goes to the network. So an input need not come from your hard disk or from your pen drive, the image or a sound or a video or a text. It can come from a sensor also. So your input can be of any of the modalities. So how the companies use CNNs, that means the convolution neural network. So I will be giving a brief explanation on why we need a convolution and why this deep learning is called as a convolution neural network. Basically, the data is very important. That is the new fuel, we say. The data, that means you see a music recommender system or anything. Suppose you watch your YouTube, your favorite channels that you have subscribed, or randomly you're watching some movies. Based on the genre what you watch, the subsequent kind of movies will be popping up. Suppose you are watching a stand-up comedy show, once or twice you will be watching, and then the subsequent popping up for you to watch further will be on the same kind. Suppose you are watching a music, then the music will be coming, or a cookery show, then the same thing will be coming. So basically the YouTube, it actually stores every video with some tag name and then with what category it belongs to. So once when you click on one particular movie and start watching, those keywords what you have seen associated with will be searched, and the rest of the things will be prompted for you to watch like that. In the same way, whatever you place order in Swiggy, Zomato, everything is like that, prompting you to buy something. Especially in Amazon, you will be seeing advertisements in YouTube or in when you open internet, it is basically money marketing. And then Amazon, everywhere. In Amazon, if you buy a chair, then the next time what you are looking for will be prompting similar to that. Okay. So basically, it is actually the feature that is extracted or the data, what you are looking for, what you are interested will be extracted. Okay. So the object recognition we can perform using deep learning. So we need several images to perform the training and the prediction or the classification. So at real time, we can perform by giving an input through a webcam. And then we can perform detection and localization. See, there are a couple of differences between detection and recognition. Detection means you are just identifying. Recognition means you are recognizing this is so and so. Suppose you are in the first image, there is a car, you are just detecting a car. When you say recognition, you are recognizing whether it is a BMW or a Maruti, whatever it is. So detection means you are just finding a car. Recognizing means what car it is. Suppose you are doing a face recognition means suppose if people faces are there, say suppose Priya, myself, Jyotsna, Sahana, so many people faces are there. If all faces are in images are there, then we can recognize, we can draw a bounding box and detect the faces. But to whom this face belongs to, if you perform, then that is called recognition. Okay. And then localization means where it is in particular coordinate within the image. That now this car is in the center. Sometimes you want to identify a tree which is in the right top corner. So you are trying to perform a kind of a localization where it is. And segmentation means you have to identify it from the background and separate it. Maybe you want to find with what speed it is going, or you want to eliminate the background and pick up only this. Say for example, in a surveillance, if it is an unmanned aerial vehicle that is capturing the motion picture, then the speed at which the vehicle that it is tracking, all those it has to follow, so the background is not required. So there are several situations like this. Similarly, we can use some signals also, like music or any other signal. We can perform that. Say, for example, a speech recognition we can perform. That means you, when you say speech, actually there are two things. One is using the words. You can try what is the spoken word, that is using the vocabulary or that one. Another one is the vocal information. That means the pitch, the modulation, actually we call that as entropy information. So based on that also we can try to find what emotions the person is expressing, whether angry or fear or sad or happy, depending on the way in which a particular word is pronounced. Okay, LSTM is long short-term memory. We will be discussing later. And food classification. So how many ever classes you have, we can classify, and from the input data, there could be millions of images from which you can perform the training. And then you can show what class it is predicted. Basically, only few lines of code we need to do. I'm showing it from the MATLAB window. The same thing can be performed using Python. And this MNIST is a very standard data set. This is created for digits recognition, numbers. So if you want to extract the handwritten digits, perform number plate detection or any other numbers detection, you can use this data set. So we usually detect what number it is. What say in the prescription or in anywhere, if you want to predict the number, then this can be used. So here once again what we are doing is we are detecting, we are recognizing, and also we are segmenting, then we are classifying. Okay. And similarly, the speech, whether you want to detect the words or based on the pronunciation, the pitch and the speech signal input, are you finding the emotions or what words? You can also perform speaker recognition based on the each person's voice. And how can things work with audio? So based on the signals, you transform the signal and perform the convolution, then match it with the target labels and get a model, train it to get a model, then perform testing. So we will be discussing about this architecture. Similarly, classification of speakers using LSTM. Who is speaking? That means based on the, we have to give the individual sample, voice audio samples of the speaker. Then you have to extract the information that will recognize the speaker individually. With those features, you have to perform the classification. And for text generation, this is mainly using the LSTM, Alexa, Siri, all those uses this kind of a deep learning part, LSTM, etc. You can predict, you can do the image captioning. Suppose if a dog is jumping, then by seeing the picture, you can write a sentence, the dog is jumping. Okay. So text generation we can do. So there are a lot of procedure involved in it. You have to take the input from the Word document or a text file, and then there are, I think you guys are learning NLP, so you have to find the stop words and then stem words, tokenizing, all those operations you have to perform, and then you have to perform the conversion from the text to the numeric, and then you have to develop a model for finding what word it is or what sentence it is, etc. So now let us move on to the approaches of deep learning. Basically, there are only two approaches for deep learning, your network development or a model development. The first one is train a deep neural network from scratch. That means you yourself or the designer can develop a network model from the input to the output. In between all the hidden layers you can decide, and then what will be the input size, I mean the layer size, how many neurons based on the number of inputs, and how many neurons in the hidden layer, and how many hidden layers you need, and then the output layer. How many classes I am going to classify? If I am classifying 4 classes like this, then in my classifier, I will have only 4 classes. If I am having 10 classes, then how will I modify it to classify 10 classes? All that the user or the designer will have the freedom to do it. So that is train a deep neural network from scratch. Usually we will call it as develop from the scratch. That is one approach where end to end the user will develop their own network model. And the next one is called a transfer learning model. So what we do here is there are already some pre-trained models like AlexNet or VGGNet, there are ResNet. There are so many models that have been developed and they are open source. So in that, what is actually being made is the hidden layers and how the convolution or feature extraction happens, all are being well defined or predefined. What we need to do is you have to only modify the last layer. That means you have to customize the classification part only to suit to the number of classes that you are going to classify. Okay. If you are classifying 4 classes, then modify the last layer for classifying into 4. Similarly for 10 or 6, whatever. So in case of transfer learning, what you do is you take a pre-trained model, modify only the classification layer, and then combine it and then make it as a new model which is suiting to your need. You can do a customization that way also. Okay, that means because the standard models are tested and they are working in a very fine way, so you can just take it, it's like a plug and play. You can just take it, change only the last layer to suit your number of classes for classification, and then you can go ahead. That is very easy. And for your project, I prefer, or myself and Jyotsna ma'am, we prefer everyone to do the first model. That means develop your own layer from the scratch. And now this is the convolution part. So I stop the presentation here, and then I will go to another presentation where I will be explaining why we need convolution and what happens in a convolution, and then again we'll come back here. So I will just quickly explain this slide. So here when we give an input image, first what happens is the features, basically all of you know, in case of any pattern recognition problem or classification problem, right from the beginning, we know we need to extract the features, and the extracted features have to be put in a proper vector form or in an array form, and it should be given to a classifier for classification. So the extraction of features, first of all, you have to decide what features. If it is a salmon sea bass classification, then length and width of the fish. Suppose if it is fruits, then it apple and orange means then it is the color and texture and not size. Suppose if it is orange, gooseberry and pepper or lemon, then it is color and the size. So depends on what you want to classify, you will be deciding on the features, then extract the features from the image or from the input data, and then if the number of features are more and if the accuracy is less, if you feel many irrelevant features are there, then you need to do a dimensionality reduction, then you have to go for the classification. Okay, so the first part from the input extracting the features, this part is called as feature learning. Why it is not called as feature extraction means we are extracting features, and why we are associating the term learning here is we are making the network to learn for the target object with the features extracted, a mapping we are trying to do. That means what we are doing in the mapping is we are training the network model with the weights. We are modifying the weights throughout the backpropagation, and in the Hep's rule or in simple perceptron we have seen the weights are being updated in the learning process. The learning is a continuous process till the network is trying to find a match for the input data in the target class. Okay. Correct. So till then the weights are being updated, and that is called as learning. So in the feature learning, the feature extraction and then the weight updation, everything happens. So this is called as a feature learning part. And then once if the learning is done, then the classification is done. So we will be doing in detail about what is the learning, what is happening in the learning, and what is happening in the classification. Okay. So now I'll move on to a topic, why we need convolution, why not the normal feature extraction using a neural network. So there should be some motivation for us to use a convolution concept here instead of a multi-layer perceptron. In case of a multi-layer perceptron, for example, we have seen the backpropagation method and then a simple perceptron method. So in that, what happens is these neurons are connected to this hidden layer or the output layer, whatever it may be. Now only these layers are connected to the input, and these layers are zeros, let us assume. Okay, I mean the input to these input neurons are 0, and only these 4 inputs you are giving the input neurons, you are giving the values of the image, the pixel values of the image, and then the weights are multiplied with this input, and then you are trying to get an output here. If it is a cat, it has to predict 1, let us say. If this is not a cat, it has to predict 0, let us say like that. Okay, so now the cat image, the inputs goes only to a portion of this input neurons, and then the weights associated with those neurons are getting revised or altered in every iteration in the process of making the output neuron 1. Okay. Now, next let us see what happens. Suppose I am giving the input image here. That means these input neurons receive the pixel intensity values. So now these weights, these 4 weights will be updated. Okay. Now let us see what is the problem with this. Suppose while testing, this is my training part, I give a testing where I keep my cat image in the center. That means I give it for a different set of inputs. Then what happens? A combination of this red and green set of neurons I am giving the cat input. In that case, what happens? If it is this case, then only these 4 weights are being set right to give a output 1. If I'm using this, only these 4 weights are matched to get a output 1. Whereas if I keep it somewhere here in a combination of red and green, then the system is going to fail miserably. Okay, that means if you give the input in any place, it will not work. But we want the neural network to learn properly wherever I give the input image to any neuron. If I give my input image, that means the intensity values of the image is given to any input neuron, the neural network should extract the features, update the weight automatically in a training process, and then it should give me a 1. Okay, so that is why the MLP failed, because the connections are fixed and the operation of Xi into Wi is also fixed. Okay. This is the reason that we are going for a convolution operation and not a simple MLP. Okay. So the convolution is going to help us, and I will come back to this convolution once again. But before that, I want to explain another concept. Three reasons why we need to use convolution. Okay. The first reason is the sparse connectivity. That means in an MLP, we have seen it is many to many connection. That means all the input neurons are connected to all the neurons of the hidden layer or output layer. And then from the hidden layer 1 to hidden layer 2 also, all the neurons are connected to each other. It is many to many combination. So in case of a deep learning architecture, what we are doing is we are not doing that way. Instead, it is only very few connections are made. That means a sparse connectivity is made. To whichever neuron we want to pass on or communicate the information, then only those neurons are connected. And also the parameter sharing happens instead of many to many. All the neurons receiving all the information from all the inputs or hidden layer neurons. We are only giving a specific neurons communicating to specific neurons in the next layer and subsequent layer and so on. So the parameter sharing will be limited. And the third reason is equivariant representation. This equivariant representation I will explain bit later when I explain the other slide. And before that, I will go on to this slide also. Can you see an image which is being rotated? Here we have an image. We are rotating the image by an angle 25 degree. So it is rotated in an anti-clockwise direction. So when we rotate an image, what happens is we are not changing any of the intensity information, only its spatial coordinates. The X and Y position are being altered, but the intensity which were present in the same position of the location of the image continues to remain in the same place. Okay, this point you please keep it in mind. So when you perform any spatial transformation, there is no change to the intensity. We are not doing any intensity transformation. So similarly, we can perform a translation. That means an image can be moved from left to right or right to left, top to bottom. Anywhere you can perform a translation. Okay. And image scaling. That means the top one you are making it equi-sized, double the times you are doing, and the bottom one you are only expanding, scaling in one dimension, you are not scaling in the other dimension. Okay, so this is scaling. Once again, there is no change to the intensity. This kind of transformation is called as geometric transformation. The next is shear. In shear, we can perform a kind of a sliding, like if assume the image is having number of layers, and or you assume a stack of papers you are keeping vertically, and you just give a light push from the left side, all the papers will be pushing like layers moving, isn't it? So that way it is happening. This is called horizontal because you are moving from left to right. Similarly, you can do a vertical. In that case, the shear will happen on the other direction. Okay, so these are the various geometrical transformation. So translation, rotation, scaling, shear, etc. Okay, so now I will come to the convolution part, and then I will explain you the equivariant also. So here I would like to use the board now to explain what is convolution and also two types of operations. Okay. So I will first show in the slide. So here, this is the input image. We have 1001 that is being shown separately here. This is called as an image patch or a local receptive field. That means some intensity values are there which are receptive to perform any filtering operations or a kernel operations. So the 3x3 window or a 2x2, whatever the size that we take, and here note down, it is not a just multiplication. This is a star. The star symbol in an image processing domain refers to a convolution operation and not multiplication. Okay. Whereas multiplication means 1 into 1 plus 0 into 2 plus 0 into 3 plus 1 into 4. That is multiplication. But whereas convolution is, we are going to perform a different operation. Okay. Suppose if my pixel interest is this one, then what we will do is we will superimpose this kernel with this 1 into 1 plus 0 into 2 like that. So 1 plus 4, it is 5, it is giving 5. Similarly, for these three input elements, if you try to do, and my pixel of interest is this one, then it is 1 plus 2 plus 4, 7. Likewise, we can do for any of the cell. So moving or sliding, this kind of operation, we call it as convolution. And this kernel, there are different types of kernel. That means it is the same mask, but by changing the values in these numbers will make a difference in the operation what we are going to perform. Okay. If I have these numbers in this, then it will perform edge reduction. If I have these numbers, it will perform sharpening. And if I have these numbers, it will perform blurring. Okay. So now let us see how these operations are performed and what are these filters named. Okay. The first and second, they are called as the first one is an high pass filtering which performs edge detection, and second one is also a kind of a enhancement operation. So a filter that is used for enhancement, a sharpening, still we can call this as a high pass filter. And the third one performs a blurring operation. This we call it as a low pass filtering operation or a smoothing operation. So usually a low pass filtering is associated with smoothing or blurring, and a high pass filtering operation is associated with sharpening or image reduction. Okay. So now let me explain this. I think I should stop share. So I have an image like this here, 4x4 image. You can read the numbers here. What we are going to do is we are going to perform an edge reduction and a smoothing operation. Let us take one element and we will do just for a sample of one element only. Okay. Usually we will be specifying this as 1x1. Row increasing this way. I mean, the first dimension is increasing this way and second dimension is increasing this way. We will assume that way. Okay. So 1x1 is this one. Okay. Now 2, 2. 2, 2 is this is 1, 1. This is 1, 2. And this is 2, 1. This is 2, 2. So 2, 2 is this. So let me assume the 2x2 position of this image, that is this one. Onto this, let us apply this edge reduction. This filter is also called as a Laplacian filter. Okay. So if I apply this filter over this, what happens? Let us see. And there is a concept behind the rationale behind in keeping the values as 1, 1, 1, 1 and -4. Basically, in an edge reduction operation, we are actually performing a gradient operation. Gradient means a slope. That means, I think all of you know what is slope, dy by dx. That means the rate of change of y with respect to x. That means if you have subsequent set of pixels, then is there any change in the intensity with respect to the x direction, or is there any change in the intensity with respect to y direction? Suppose in place of 5, if I have 2, let me assume, then in this direction, if I see, there is no change in the y. Whereas these two rows, if I see, there is a change. And say I am assuming this as 2, then from left to right, 2, 2, 2, 2, there is no change. Whereas here there is a change. So the gradient, what it means is, with respect to x, what is the change in y? I can also write it the other way. If I'm looking at the other dimension or other direction, what is the change while moving from left to right or while moving from top to bottom? In that case, I will change this. So how this formula is arrived, I am not going to explain here because that itself will take 1 hour. So we are not going deep into that, but this is the idea. Okay. So for doing this, what we will do is f of x plus 1 comma y minus f of x comma y, like that we will do. That means you take the center pixel and find the difference between the next pixel, and then you take the center pixel, find the difference between the previous. You take the center pixel and find the difference in this, or find the difference in this. In that case, you will keep this as x, you will make this as y minus 1 or y plus 1. So that one is actually this, when you put it in the form of a coordinates, this will be, this is f of x comma y, this is x plus 1 comma y, this is x minus 1 comma y, this is f of x comma y minus 1, this is f of x comma y plus 1. Okay, so in that case, where you are incrementing, decrementing. So based on that, the numbers will be formulated here. So that is the rationale behind this. So now let us quickly do the convolution part. So let us take this 2 cross 2 and let us do this. So what we are going to do here is, we are going to match this -4 with this 2, and then this 0, 1, 0, 1 and 1, 0, 1, 0, we are going to match with rest of the elements. You are superimposing. So what happens is, 1 into 0 is 0, 2 into 1 is 2. I will write completely. 1 into 0 plus 2 into 1 plus 2 into 0 plus 3 into 1 plus, anyway it is minus. So -4 into 2 plus 1 into 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0. So what you will get is 2 plus 3 minus 8 plus 2. Correct? 2 plus 3, 5. 5 minus 8 is -3. -3 plus 2 is -1. You will be getting. Am I correct? Is it correct or not?
Correct only, ma'am.
Okay. So now this -1, what we will do is, we will substitute this -1 in place of the 2. We'll substitute this -1 in place of this. Okay. So now this is a simple convolution operation. Why we are calling as convolution operation is, the center pixel of this mask, this can be called as mask or kernel or filter or window. So this mask, the center pixel should usually match with the pixel of interest, where we want to change the intensity, or if you want to perform edge detection, whatever is your purpose. So accordingly, this center pixel should match with the image, with the pixel of your choice, of your interest. Okay. So now I have taken this -4 with this. Earlier it was 2. So what we usually do is, we will not substitute there. What we usually do is, we will create another blank image, blank array, and here we usually substitute. We will not substitute in the image, because this is the original image. The original image content should not get altered. Instead, the value should go to a newly created array of the same dimension. Okay. Fine. So now, similarly, what we have to do is, the same mask you keep slide to the next pixel. Then this 2 also will change it as -1. This will change it as -1. Likewise, it goes on. So this kind of operation we are doing, and it is not just stopping with just one pixel. You will be sliding, and then we are doing. Okay. So this superimposing operation, and then multiplication of element by element of the filter with the image, summing up, and then putting in the center pixel, this entire operation, this complete sequence of operation is called as convolution. This is similar in case of signals. We call this is similar to correlation, but in image processing, this is just a convolution operation. Okay. And then if you complete this, then this will give an edge detection, because wherever you will have the difference, only you will have value. If you have continuously the same, then there is no change in the intensity. In that case, you will be getting a 0. So wherever there is change in intensity, those only will be captured, and you can perform an edge reduction. So that is an high pass filtering operation will happen. Okay. Similarly, we can perform smoothing. Okay, we can perform smoothing on this. So generally what we do in smoothing is, it is actually a blurring. So what we do in blurring is, the intensity of the image will be reduced. As you have seen in the previous slide, the animal face was shown, and then in the blurring part, the intensity were reduced. So what we are trying to do is, this is actually the influence of the neighborhood intensity values contributing the center pixel intensity. That means the center pixel intensity value is influenced by its neighbors that are surrounded by it. The 8 neighbors that are surrounded by a center pixel contributes the center pixel intensity value. So what happens ideally is, suppose if the surrounding pixel intensity values are more, and if I take an average value, okay, by multiplying with the kernel, I will explain the kernel cell elements later. Now just you take the, let me take this example. Say suppose I have a 10 here, and a 20, and then 20, 20, 30, 10, 50, 20, and this is a 10. Okay. Now you just find, now this is my center pixel. Okay. You just find these pixels and then take the average of all the 9, 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 10 plus 10 plus 20, 50, 10, 20, all the 9 pixels, you take the average, sum and divide by 9, and you put it here, it will be definitely about 10. Okay. Suppose if the surrounding pixel values are below in the average, then what happens? The intensity is reducing. So the surrounding pixel or the neighborhood pixel intensity values actually influence the center pixel. If you want to smoothen or blur, then if these are low, then it will get blurred. So what we are doing is, in such situations, we change the mask to be 1, 1, 1, and then you just do 1 by 9. Either you can put 1 by 9 inside, or you can just write it outside 1 by 9. That means you are just taking an average and putting. So if the surrounding pixel intensity values are more, then this will increase. If it is less, then it will decrease. Okay. So that is what happens in a smoothing. If it decreases, then it is smoothing. Suppose if there are some noise, then the noise value will get reduced. So when we smoothen, the noise will get removed. That is what happens. Okay. So this is what I want to explain here using the board. And then here I have written a 7x7 image. I have not filled anything here. Now what I want to say is, if I use a convolution mask, say for example, I take a 3x3 filter. Okay, I take a 3x3 filter. If I want to keep this center, with this, then what will happen is, I will get values of all these surrounding 8 and including this 9. These 9 values I will get, and then whatever, maybe if it is smoothing or edge reduction, whatever, accordingly I will get a value here. So this is my first one I am doing. Then what I do is, I slide it, then I move to this pixel of my interest, then I will do like this, then I will move like this, then I will move like this. Okay. So I'm sliding pixel one by one. Okay. So this is a 7x7, and where I started with this. I did start here because if I keep it here, what happens? These three will not have a match. These three will not have a match. Even if it is having a match, it will be padded with 0 only. So those zeros will make the elements for this particular cell to reduce its value, because it will get a contribution only from these three maximum. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm assuming without padding. So I'm starting here. Okay. So if I start here and I am moving one by one. So what happens? It goes like this. So similarly, I'm going to next row, and then I have to stop here. I cannot do below this. I cannot go for this because the rest of the pixels here are undefined. Okay. So what happens is, from this 7 cross 7, if I get my output image, after performing this convolution operation, it will be a 5 cross 5. I think it is 11:35. I will just take 1 or 2 minutes extra because your next hour is free only. Just a few minutes. I want to finish this. Okay. So from this 7 cross 7, it becomes 5 cross 5 because we are not making this center pixel to match with this. Instead, we are making to match with this so that you get all the pixels around the center pixel to contribute to the intensity value. That is why the 7 cross 7 becomes 5 cross 5. And moreover, I am moving one by one. So if I move one by one, then that is called as stride. We can write it as 1 cross 1. That means 1 pixel. Okay. I can also have a stride 2 cross 2. That means I'm interleaving. Every alternate column I'm leaving and then I'm moving. That means first if I do for this, then I will leave this, then next I will go here. After doing this, I will leave this and next I will go here. And this should be the last one, isn't it? So 1, 2, and 3. Similarly, 1, 2, and 3. So if I make a stride of 2, it becomes 3 cross 3. Okay. So this is the idea. So I will stop here the board part. I think it is clear now. So coming back to the earlier place where we have stopped, this is the concept. So this is what happens in a edge reduction or sharpening or a blurring, and convolution is similar to correlation. Okay. And what is meant by this translation equivariant? This I want to explain. Okay, I'll explain this and then I'll stop today's class. What is meant by equivariant is, it is actually invariant. You are calling it as equivariant. Now assume you are considering an image of a location x comma y. Okay. Now I'm performing a convolution operation and this I of x comma y becomes g of x comma y. After convolution, I'm getting a new set of pixels. Okay. Now, after performing this, like, say for example, when you say translation, I will first explain translation, then I will come to this. Kindly excuse me for taking additional minutes only today. Kindly excuse. So when I perform translation, what happens is, assume I have a pixel x comma y. I'm translating it to another location, say x dash y dash. I'm translating it to x dash y dash. Now I performed first translation. Now what I do is, after translating to this x dash y dash, x and y, please remember x and y refers to the location. Okay, x and y refers to the location. Now the intensity at this position now becomes I of x dash y dash. Say this I, say this is 50. 50 is my intensity value here. Now I perform some intensity enhancement. To this 50, I add 100. It becomes 150. Okay. Now what I did is two operations. One is I translated the pixel. Okay. I translated the pixel and then I modified the intensity. So initially it was in, say, let me take 20 comma 20 in the spatial coordinate. Say now this position, say 100 comma 100 in the x and y. Okay. From 20 comma 20 x 20 y 20, it has moved to 100 comma 100. When I was moving the intensity, I did not make any change. The 50 continued to remain as 50 even if when it went to 100 comma 100. Okay. So in the translation, I first moved the pixel. Then in the transformation of the intensity, what I am doing is I am adding 100. So it becomes 150. This is on left hand side. You imagine this is on my left hand side. Okay. So on my left hand side, I performed translation. Then I increased the intensity. Okay. This is on my left hand side. Okay. Now I'm moving to my right hand side. So what I'm doing is, in the 20 comma 20, before performing translation, I am first increasing the intensity. So in my right hand side, what I am doing is, I am first increasing the intensity. Okay. So when it was 20 comma 20, in that location, I have an intensity 50. To that I add 100. It becomes 150. Now after making it to 150, what I do is, I perform the translation. So it goes to 100 comma 100. So when it goes to 100 comma 100, the same pixel goes. That means the same intensity is moving there. So it will continue to remain as 150 only. Here also it will have, at the end it will have 150. Here also it will have 150. So my left hand side operation and my right hand side operation both are same. That means whether I perform a translation and then I increase the intensity, or I increase the intensity and then I perform translation, both will be the same. That means it is called equivariant. That means you are performing a convolution operation, okay, and then you are changing the in the, say this is my output image. This image you are translating. That means you are moving from one place to other. Then that is same. Otherwise, before performing translation, this image you are moving, and then, sorry, before performing convolution, you are moving the image, I mean translating. Then you perform convolution, it remains the same. Okay, that is called equivariant. Okay, so let us stop here and continue in the next class. I hope this is clear for all. Any doubts so far? Shall we stop here and continue on Thursday? Are you there?